3,000 people took to the streets, and the authorities responded by deploying special police units hidden inside tour buses. This isn't a scene from a movie, this is raw. First-hand footage from eyewitnesses in Xinyi, Guangdong captured just this past March 25th. At the same time, similar unrest erupted in Sichuan, Inner Mongolia, and all the way to Hainan. People were crying, screaming, and being struck down by police batons. Meanwhile, rumors are swirling out of central Beijing that Xi Jinping suffered a stroke and was rushed to the 301 military hospital. Then, out of nowhere, former Premier Wen Jiabao, who had completely vanished for over a year, suddenly appeared at the Xinhuamen gate in Beijing, waving hi to the crowds. There's a massive tremor within the ruling elite. While the fires of resistance are being lit from the ground up, something big is shifting in this giant of a nation. Today, we're going to break it all down, one piece at a time. Hi Tracers, Sean here, and welcome back. It's always good to be back with you all. Today, we're looking past the official headlines to talk about the massive cracks forming in the walls of a global superpower. While the official narrative is busy painting a picture of stability, amateur footage from the ground shows a public that is rapidly losing its fear. From violent clashes in remote villages to high-stakes power plays in the heart of Beijing, all of this hit in the same week. What is actually breaking apart over there? Let's dive in. Because you never know how deep this hole goes. First, let's get an update on the situation in Xinyi, Guangdong. On March 25th, this once obscure small town in Guangdong reached a fever pitch. According to a local resident named Lin Yalong, around 3,000 people gathered again that day. But this time, the atmosphere was quiet. He said the crowd had no intention of starting a fight. They simply moved toward a city park and stood there, using their silence to make a statement. However, the authorities' response was completely out of proportion. Massive waves of heavily armed riot police immediately stormed in. What's even more chilling is that several buses carrying special units were deliberately disguised as ordinary tour buses, plain blue, with no markings, sneaking into the city center to block off the streets. The bus doors swung open, and fully armed special police poured out. They grabbed their gear from inside the buses and immediately formed a tactical line on the spot. The crowd began to realize something was wrong. Some started setting up makeshift barricades in the streets, leading to a tense standoff with the police. From the special unit side, they shouted threats that if the crowd didn't disperse immediately, they would open fire with tear gas. Not long after, the police began beating residents with batons while blasting recorded threats through megaphones. Riot police soon joined in on the assault. Residents also noticed a large number of plainclothes officers blending into the crowd to incite chaos. They worked together to snatch anyone labeled a provocator. It didn't matter if they resisted or not. Some were dragged out specifically to be made examples of, just to terrify the rest. Once the crackdown ended, the authorities immediately imposed a draconian blockade on the surrounding areas. To enter the village, you had to show your ID, and many roads were physically cut off by the police. Outsiders couldn't get in, villagers couldn't get out, and they were strictly forbidden from heading into the city. 2 neighboring villages also suffered a massive power outage for 15 hours, lasting from 7 inches the morning until 10 at night. Families of residents working out of town were tracked down by village officials and police for posting videos of the incident. They were forced to delete everything until all voices online were completely silenced through total censorship. Even the village officials were sternly warned not to get involved, let alone speak out. Following the blockade, the most disturbing rumors began circulating on X. Some netizens have been forwarding reports claiming that authorities in Xinyi, Guangdong beat over 100 people to death during this stability maintenance operation. These posts were accompanied by photos, though other users pointed out that the images might be old, leaving their authenticity in question. However, the raw fear and rage in the comment sections are something you just can't fake. One user wrote that their relatives in Xinyi haven't been reachable for 48 hours because the local internet has been completely cut off. They went on to leak a devastating story about a family of 3 generations, grandparents in their 80s and a 2-year-old grandson. The elderly couple was reportedly beaten to death by officers during the clashes. The toddler, confused and terrified, began crying hysterically over his grandparents' bodies. An officer nearby, annoyed by the noise, allegedly struck the 2-year-old in the head with a baton. The child hasn't made a sound since. These details currently cannot be verified through any official channels, but in the midst of such a tight information blackout, the authorities' silence speaks volumes. The fact that this news spread like wildfire among the overseas Chinese community, sparking such a visceral reaction, shows just how little trust the people have left in the CCP's authority. The shockwaves from this tragedy have crossed the Pacific and Atlantic Oceans. Calls have been circulating online, urging the overseas Chinese community to gather today, March 28th, at the Amsterdam Central Station Square in the Netherlands. This protest is a form of transoceanic solidarity with the people of Xinyi and a direct condemnation of the government's violent crackdown. The CCP regime might be able to blockade villages, cut off the internet, and silence people within its borders, but their reach doesn't extend beyond them. Now, to understand why the situation in Xinyi escalated so quickly, we have to look at the root cause. This entire crisis actually stems from a carefully calculated deception by the local authorities. Under the guise of village progress, through new roads and bridges, officials pressured the residents of Guangdong village to give up their land. Believing it was for the sake of future generations, the villagers agreed, albeit with heavy hearts. However, when the official plans were finally released on March 16th, they were stunned to discover that the land was actually slated for a massive crematorium and funeral home complex called Yifu Park, a project worth a staggering $20 million. The chosen location is even more horrifying. It's just 700 meters from Guangdong village and less than 600 meters from both Lincheng Middle School and the Central Primary School. To make matters worse, it's located right next to the community's primary clean water source. This project had already been rejected by several other locations because of the environmental and social risks. Eventually, it was dumped and forced onto Guangdong village instead, without any real public consultation. By March 17th, the local villagers had had enough and marched to the village committee office to demand answers. On March 19th, hundreds took their protest to the Xinyi mayor's office. A massive wall of riot police blocked the gates, and that's when things turned physical. It was during this chaos that a thin, elderly woman with white hair was captured on camera, bending over to pick up a stone and hurling it with all her might at the riot police. That image has since gone viral, becoming one of the most powerful symbols of resistance in China so far in 2026. But what we're seeing today in Xinyi is no longer just about a construction project. It's the beginning of something much, much bigger. On March 25th, there was one specific detail on the streets of Xinyi that should make us all stop and take a very close look. Footage circulating from the scene clearly shows that the crowd's chants were no longer just about demands like cancel the crematorium or give us back our land. The angry crowd was now targeting the top level, shouting for the downfall of the Communist Party and calling for Xi Jinping to step down. Not only that, but a netizen leaked information that in public restrooms along the streets of Xinyi, anti-Xi Jinping slogans have started appearing with some truly shocking content. And back on March 19th, in front of the Xinyi mayor's office, a scene unfolded that was even more symbolic. A woman holding the national flag was pushed to the ground by riot police during the clashes. In her left hand, she still gripped that 5-starred red flag tightly, but it lay there on the pavement completely upside down. What started as a simple protest for basic rights is now transforming into a much deeper form of political expression. The story from Xinyi, Guangdong, is deeply moving, but it's not an isolated incident. That same week, a wave of protests erupted, one after another across various regions in China. Let's step back to late night on March 24th in Zuoling New Town, Wuhan. Zuoling is a relocation housing project where residents have lived since 2014 without ever being charged a cent for parking. For these residents, free parking was a right that came with their relocation status. After all, they've always paid their monthly management and maintenance fees on time, so as far as they were concerned, parking should remain free of charge. But as 2026 began, the management suddenly announced they were bringing in a third party to run the parking facilities. Effective immediately, every private car was hit with a monthly fee of 30 yuan. This was a one-sided decision, no consultation, no vote. They just hammered it through. The residents' long-simmering frustration finally reached its limit. On March 19th, the elderly residents of the Baihu complex were the first to act. They gathered at the main gate to protest. When the management blocked their access cards, these seniors simply stood their ground at the gate, refusing to move. That spirit of resistance spread like wildfire as neighbors started calling each other, rallying for a collective stand. Everything boiled over late on the night of March 24th. A few men took the lead, snapping the parking gate arms one by one. Hundreds, then thousands of residents swarmed the area. No one backed down. They cheered in unison, "Keep it up!" while others shouted at the top of their lungs, "People of Zuoling, rise up!" That night, thousands of residents swept through the area, moving from the Yuquan complex through Zuoling 4, 3, 2, and finally Complex 1. They dismantled every single payment kiosk in all 5 complexes. In a single night, 6 parking gates were toppled, and the management's forced fee plan was dead in the water. This is a rare grassroots victory proof that when the people stand united, they really can change their reality. The very next night, March 25th, a similar wave of protests broke out at the Longhu Guanlan complex in Yueqi, Sichuan province. A massive crowd of homeowners blocked the road in front of their complex to protest forced parking fees. Once the police arrived, physical clashes became unavoidable. Unlike the victory in Wuhan, there's no word yet on how the situation in Yueqi ended. But seeing the same trigger, the same rage, and the same confrontation in 2 different cities on the same day is no coincidence. It's a snapshot of a systemic crisis. On March 25th, dozens of villagers from Baogulu in Chifeng, Inner Mongolia, gathered at the gates of the Angsin digital nursery plant. They were there to demand answers for unpaid land lease fees. Their demand was simple and direct. Give us back the money that belongs to us. The authorities responded by deploying 4 buses, carrying about 200 police officers to restore order. Police screamed at the residents, "Back off! Move!" Anyone who doesn't clear out will have their IDs and names recorded one by one. Facing that kind of intimidation, one resident shouted a question out of pure desperation.
你问问他们有没有老百姓的孩子这里头啊？
往后退，快点！
这是共产党吗？这是国民党多不多？你不多啊？警察来镇压老百姓来了。警察多不多？强行把老百姓整，插播不让老百姓吃饭。
200 police officers deployed just to face a few dozen farmers demanding their rights. This is the reality of China in 2026. Then, on March 26th, in Yacheng, Sanya, an 80-year-old grandmother climbed onto a massive excavator all by herself. With her frail body, she swore to protect her family's land until her last breath. But without a second thought, the police seized her, handcuffed her hands behind her back, and dragged her away. Her family, standing by and filming the scene, could only scream in pure rage.
这是我老妈，80岁了，这片土地被抢走了，轻描轻的不得。
An 80-year-old grandmother, handcuffed behind her back. This is a scene that truly needs no further explanation. Hey everyone, before we dive into the video, we want to announce that we're launching a brand new segment called Trace Your Story. For this segment, you can send us a real-life story you've experienced, from horror and cheating to crime or any other true story you have. Send us your story at Sean Varel, traceyourstory@gmail.com, using this format. Email subject, trace your story. Story title, your title here. Tell us your experience in as much detail as possible. Feel free to include any supporting photos or evidence if you have them. Optional contact, your WhatsApp number or another way we can reach you for more information. Don't worry, you can absolutely send your story anonymously if you prefer. We'll do our best to create a video and tell your experience. I'm really looking forward to your emails, and who knows, your story might be the very first one featured on Trace Your Story. Don't forget to submit your stories. I'll be waiting and can't wait to read them. While the fires of resistance are spreading among the people, two explosive reports have emerged from the halls of power in Beijing that deserve our full attention. On March 27th, Beijing time, a whistleblower leaked news that Xi Jinping had suffered another stroke and was rushed to the 301 military hospital for emergency treatment. Rumors about Xi's health are nothing new, but the authorities have a long history of staying silent. This time is no different. The wall of silence remains unbroken. Now, we can't verify the absolute truth of this rumor, but there is something deeper to consider. Why does this news go viral every single time it surfaces? It's not just a hoax about a man's health, it reflects the desperation of a society exhausted by iron-fisted rule. It represents a secret hope, an unspoken prayer shared in private spaces that he might finally leave. The vitality of a rumor, after all, depends on how fertile the soil is where it grows. There is another report that is far more substantial than the rumors about Xi's health. Just as the news of the stroke broke, former Premier Wen Jiabao, who had completely vanished for over a year, was reportedly seen near Xinhuamen, Beijing. A photo has even been circulating online as proof of his appearance. In the photo, an elderly man who looks exactly like Wen Jiabao is standing on the sidewalk in a dark jacket. He has his right hand raised high, waving calmly and naturally to the crowd. He is flanked by men in dark suits and casual wear. Along the curb, a line of black sedans is parked, one equipped with a red strobe light, a hallmark of an official motorcade. Dozens of people are gathered around, capturing the moment on their phones. The sky is overcast and hazy, a typical scene for Beijing's government district. According to AI forensic analysis, the photo appears to be authentic with no signs of manipulation. Chai Shenkun, a commentator known for accurate leaks regarding CCP internal politics, reposted the photo on X. He wrote, "Wen Jiabao has appeared in public looking in excellent shape." This could be seen as a direct rebuttal to the rumors. He further explained that this rebuttal was necessary because of earlier whispers that Wen Jiabao had become a target of Xi's retaliation. The story goes that after Wen openly opposed Xi's plan to take Taiwan by force, his entire family was placed under house arrest, and he was wiped from public view. Renowned YouTuber Wen Ru provided a deep dive analysis on this. He argues that Wen Jiabao's sudden appearance at such a sensitive moment is no accident. It's a series of crucial political signals. First, it tells the world, "I am fine." By appearing in public, he's announcing that at over 80 years old, he is still physically and mentally sharp and still capable of making moves. Second, it's a direct challenge to Xi Jinping. He wants to show the outside world that his personal freedom is intact. Despite the speculation that he defied Xi's authority, the reality is that Xi couldn't touch him. His presence at Xinhuamen is a silent challenge sent directly to the top. Third, it shows that the anti-Xi faction still exists. By stepping out, Wen Jiabao is signaling that even though the vice chairman of the Central Military Commission, Zhang Youxia, has been sidelined, the opposition inside the party hasn't vanished. They are still here, and they still have teeth. Fourth, the final showdown has just begun. Wen Rui's analysis points out that in recent days, Xi Jinping himself has left Beijing for Xinhuamen. This suggests he has secured his position to some extent and is choosing to strategize from a safer distance. But the fact that Wen Jiabao appeared in the heart of Beijing at exactly this time sends a message of clear competition. Wen Rui believes that the final act of this high-level power struggle has quietly begun a confrontation that can no longer be avoided. The broken parking gates in Wuhan, the stone thrown by the grandmother in Xinyi, the angry questions from farmers in Inner Mongolia, the cries of a family as an 80-year-old in Hainan is hauled away in handcuffs, and the shouts for regime change on the streets, all of this, coupled with a silent political earthquake in the heart of Beijing. It all happened in the very same week. Tracers, we don't know for sure where this giant nation is headed. But one thing is certain. The people of China are starting to find their voices recording, resisting, and fighting back, even at a high personal cost. When fear vanishes, even the tallest walls begin to crumble. What do you think? Is this the beginning of the end for the system, or just a temporary spark? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Thanks for watching until the end, and if you're still watching this, maybe you're looking for the same thing I am.